And this is the case that we actually did. They set up some multiple hopping point and staging point in Korea to attack the target in Korea. And this operation is not temporary. It's been doing like for more than years and years. And they change very fast when it comes to closer to the target. They change slowly when it comes to closer to the attackers. So if you have a view over the horizon to the internet, there's a high possibility for us to see what's going on. And what is the problem? And let me think about the problem. This is not a fault for defenders, or this is not only for those advanced movement for the attackers. The main reason lies in the expansion of cyberspace. In the very early time, cyberspace wasn't this big. There was a few computers and only trust people uses it. At the time, we had a like technology like IDS, and they can actually see everything. Every single bit goes through the internet. But when there's more cases, we make use of those internet for commercial and other purposes, like cloud services and internal services. And then there's an expansion for the cyberspace, like for 2 dimensions. So there's a scared, like it was a line, but it become a surface. And we have to cover all the surfaces to see everything what's going on in there. But we barely did it. But recently, we have other changes comes in, like I introduced, Crimea as a service or the Marvel as a service actually gives another axis. It expands the surface as a third, like r to the power, like it's a power of third, which means it can become a volume. In this volume, it's almost impossible to see what's going on in there. So we usually focus on some signal we may know, but we usually lose the sight over this entire space. So try to win the competition or the war between the defender and attackers. We need to find a good way to see what's going on in this volume. This is actually a big data space, and we may need some new technology like big data and AI. And this is the result of those space expansion. It was a first dimension, and we could deal this problem. But as the dimension increases, it becomes almost impossible to solve this problem in a conventional way. So there is another way to see this problem different than traditional approaches. And there's a good books outside you can read. This is actually a book by Ray A. Losrock. He is a very famous guy for digital resilience. And in this book, he said, resilient networks are those that quickly identify and limit the activities of unauthorized actors. Before, we mostly focus on not the resiliency, but the recovery. Recovery means, for example, if a lizard has cut, or for, like say, for example, human being got cut off their arm, then recovery means they have to regrow their arms. But in the resilience cases, even though he'll have lost some of the limb, he still can work and continue to he can keep the business continuity. Then that's the case for the digital resilience. Resilience doesn't mean complete recovery, but you're still working and do whatever you are supposed to do. So there's a famous book of a working wounded, but this is for the case for the attackers, but it's also for case for defenders. And their networks are architected to minimize the potential damages. So which means before there's less concern for architecture consideration. They built the DMZ and they built some kind of war and wishes not to come over. Now we need to have active participation and design for minimize potential for the damages. And most important case for this is they are characterized by an ability to resume essential operations quickly after sustaining a disabling attack. I've seen a lot of cases in Korea. Many attackers, after they've done successful exploitation of their target, they still remain within the boundary of organization, hidden in there, and they re-attack over and over again and causing a lot of business damage to their organizations. So even though, like before, even though there's a cases have resolved, but you have to still concern about the residual risk remains in their network. So you have to look very closely for the network traffic caused or created from your inside network, and then to see whatever they are going on. So wherever they go to. So what I meant is, it's not by solving one problem doesn't necessarily mean you are solving all the problem in your network. You need to make some different attitude. That's where comes the zero trust. Zero trust is not a technology. It's kind of a goal for us to achieve. So to regain the trust, we need to think about the zero trust and the positive security to win against the war, against the cyber criminals. And where those problems come from? I mainly think those problems come from the difference between the real world and cyberspace. The real world is actually whoever, whatever, or the God is, it's created by God and governed by universal principles. And it appears differently, but they have all same reason. But the cyberspace is created by human being, and it can be changed anytime soon in any way, because it's only the protocol between the technical protocol. So we set up the way it behaves. So there's a huge difference in dealing with the problem in the real life and the cyberspace. In the real life, whenever we go back to the cause of the problem, there lies a problem. The cause, for example, if there's a cannonball like fall in some area, if you go back to the trajectory, there must be a cannon and the operators. But when it comes to the cyberspace, if you go back to the cause, there's only computer devices, mobile device, a computer device, and it's not actually an origination. It turns out to be just a staging point or intermediary point to hide their full path of their operations. So when you work in the real life, you need to think about the cause of the problem. But when you think about the problem in the cyberspace, you need to more think about the effect. Before, there's a one effect that actually done a lot of harm, but now the one action actually lead to the second action and third action we call the cyber kill chain, and it end up create a big problem. For example, the case we experienced in Korean military organization, those attackers first, 1 year ago, they attacked the military organization. They compromised the software supplier to the military, and they stole some sensitive information, the source code of those companies. And they probably spent a lot of time to research and analyze, and they found a 0-day vulnerability. And after 1 year, they made use of the 0-day the vulnerability to attack the military organization. And today's defense system is mainly they rely on the knowledge, but there was no knowledge for the 0-day. So a lot of information got expatriated from one of the most secured institutes in Korea. Today, those supply chain attacks, especially for the software-based supply chain attack, is a big problem in Korea. Even cyber criminals make use of those skills to attack highly secured financial, military, and public organizations. And this is the picture, like I went in as an investigator. This organization is an important organization in dealing with the sensitive information, but their internal network was highly connected and also compromised by attackers, and they create the infrastructure inside the network, and then they knew what they were doing, and they were stealing the information little by little, and when the time comes, they probably do whatever they want to do, because most of the hosts are compromised and their and then they can make use of this system, whatever the purposes they wanted to. But today's adversaries have worked over the years to set up entry point, and they maintaining it. And they made use of the hacked computers and the staging as a staging point along with the VPN and proxies and evaded detections, and it changes all the time. And for highly valued targets, software supply chain attack is performed, and because today's binary or binomial defense system treat the problem either good or bad. Once it was good, then it treated it as a good forever. For example, one device working as a security device, trustful security device, and if they change their activities, then there's no way for us to identify the changes. So we need to change our tactics to find those problems inside our networks, because tomorrow's information security will become a change management. After the compromise, the adversaries stays within the organization until the right time comes. And when the right time comes, they can do whatever they want. They can probably encrypt, or they can steal information, or they can destroy the information. Once they compromise and got the full access of the organization, they can do whatever they want to do. Okay, this is the last section of my presentation. This is kind of summary, the lesson learned from K-COVID response. This is the suggestion for coping with the cyber new normals. The nation-state cyber adversaries perform recent cyber attack with plenty of resources and to accomplish financial and political goals. Like if you sum up all the resources of the attackers and all the resources of the defenders one must be way bigger than the attackers one. But attacker can concentrate their resources to break into the defender's organization. That was the problem. So we need to find a way to distribute those resources like smart, wisely. And then they make use of the CAAS and the MAAS to circumvent 2-decade-old cyber defense systems. And we need to change this. And the adversaries with resources and skill separate the cyber operation and cyber infrastructure to circumvent today's defense system. And cyber attack changes from linear and one-time operation to non-linear and continuous operations, creating highly volatile infrastructure close to defenders and comparatively static infrastructures close to attackers. It needs to trace attackers from the relatively stable infrastructure close to adversaries. It is no more possible to eradicate the state-sponsored adversaries. Even though you eradicate those countries, those attackers still remain. And because they're working not in the single physical locations, they spread all over the world, either logically or physically. And we need to change our tactics to in the perspective of risk management. Okay, my presentation is my presentation is so far like this, and then I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.